Hello and welcome to Let's Talk About It. My guest today is Debbie Honore. Debbie, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. You guys know I like to share various stories with you all the time that inspire, motivate, and educate. Debbie's story is definitely one of those stories. Debbie actually came here from, well, not from New Orleans. You came here by way of Atlanta, but originally from New Orleans.
Yes.
Now, let us, my guest, know a little bit more about the insight and the story as to how you got to Houston, Texas.
I am, as you've stated, I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, and when I was a part of Hurricane Katrina, and during that process, moved to Atlanta, stood in Atlanta for about a year, and then transitioned to Houston, Texas.
And then transition. Okay, so what was that experience like for you? Because a lot of people end up coming to Houston after the Katrina catastrophe actually took place. That had to be tough for you.
It was. Just going through the entire process of just leaving home when it was said that a storm was coming, and once the storm happened and not being able to get back home for about, I would say, a month, just not knowing, if your home was still there, family members, things like that. So it was a tough situation for anyone to go through.
Now, tell me, did you evacuate immediately, or were you one of the people that evacuated it toward the end? Because I know a lot of people kind of got caught up, and then there were some that left time they said this is going to happen. Were you a part of that?
I would say almost to the end.
Really?
Yeah, just dreading, not wanting to leave and not wanting to go, because I want to say maybe a week or two prior, we were told that we had another storm coming, and we had just left for that one. So with this one, nothing happened with that one, and then Katrina came, and it was like, do I really want to leave? Do we really want to go? And we just waited until the last minute and just decided, well, not necessarily the last minute, but it was the night prior. We left and, just was on the road, just driving, not sure where we were going, and we winded up in Atlanta.
Really?
Yes.
And now, from what I understand in reading your bio information, that's all you had on was your clothes on your back, basically.
Yes.
And your car.
Yes.
Because you had to leave everything. And you actually began to live in Atlanta for a period of time, from 06 to 07, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then you came to Houston, Texas.
Yes.
All right. Now, Debbie's story is very inspirational, because what I liked about your story when we had our discussion was that you overcame something. You overcame the tragedy of Katrina. And you have to literally start over.
Yes.
In Houston, Texas. And now Debbie owns a very successful business called Shoe Fetage. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, pronounce that for our audience, because I tend to get mixed up when I even try to pronounce that word.
It is Shoe Fetage.
Shoe Fetage. Now, for people like myself, I just say shoe fetish, but Sister Honore says shoe fetage. Now, it's a very successful women's shoe store, but it's also clothing as well, right?
Yes. Shoe Fetage sells ladies' handbags, shoes, apparel, and also accessories. But we also give confidence, and we also minister to other women, and we also provide
a lot of things. Clothing, jewelry, accessories, like she said. And a lot of times, when women come into a clothing store, they want to feel confident in whatever they're wearing. They're wanting that salesperson to pick out the perfect outfit that's going to work for them, so that they look good. Because when you look good, you walk in confidence.
That's true.
Just like you're doing today.
Thank you.
As always.
Thank you.
And of course, if somebody owns a clothing store, you expect them to be like this. Do you ever feel pressure to look a certain way because you actually own a women's boutique?
No, not at all.
No?
Believe it or not, I don't. Because this is me. This is who I am. I am Shoe Fetage.
Okay.
So this is my image. So I always look the part. You have to.
Okay. Now tell me this. Being that you're in the fashion industry, what was your inspiration for getting in the fashion industry?
I've always had a passion for fashion. It started, I didn't even realize, but it actually started back in my childhood days. Because I would always, dress up and, just put different things together. And once I was nominated in high school for Best Dress, I realized at that moment that this is definitely a gift that I've been blessed with.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. That's interesting. Nominated for Best Dress. Wow. So, a lot of times what I notice with people, and even with myself, we start off with things early in life, but we don't realize, wow, this was the start of what I'm doing right now.
Yes.
For myself, I used to photograph album covers. I would just take an album cover with my camera and just shoot the album cover. And I didn't know none of the artists. I would just take the cover and just take a picture of the cover. And it wasn't until years later, actually, that I realized what I had been doing all along was kind of like preparing myself for where I'm at today with the celebrities that I have, a blessing to photograph and things like that. So I can see how things transition from one age to the next age.
Yes.
And how we, Now, as far as fashion is concerned, what are some of the current fashion trends that you see happening now? Where is women's fashion going right now?
Definitely fashion forward. I mean, just so much of just color blocking and just not necessarily wearing all things that basically match. I mean, just pairing and piecing together just different colors and, how you basically put things together.
Okay. Now that's it's funny that you should say that, because one day I was actually looking through one of the fashion magazines, and I think the lady had on might have been a pink outfit similar to yours, but her shoes were green, and I was like, shoes ain't matching the outfit.
It doesn't have to.
And okay.
It doesn't have to. Not at all. Not the way things are going now. You don't have to necessarily match. Right now I'm wearing a coral top with a pink skirt and a pink jacket.
Right.
But it's all working together.
And it all works together.
Yeah.
So who sets the trends in fashion? Who says that it's okay to wear shoes that don't match the outfit? Where does all this come from?
Yourself.
Okay. So one person starts it and then the whole trend starts.
Yes.
Is that right?
I believe so.
I understand that. I think a lot of times it starts with celebrities. When people see what celebrities are wearing, they think it's okay for them to wear. Or they might see Beyonce with the long blonde hair, and everybody think that they can put in 16 inches of blonde hair and whatever. And speaking of that, she was one of the first people that I saw with shoes that didn't match in one of her videos, I think. And I was like, shoes ain't matching. I just go back to that matching thing because I guess I'm old school.
But remember, it's Beyonce.
And I guess that's what everybody else needs to remember. It's Beyonce.
It's Beyonce.
Now, I know you get to dress many different women in your store. What do you recommend for the full-figured woman? Because a lot of times full-figured women are not able to find clothing that's as fashion-forward as some of the model-type skinny women. What do you recommend for the full-figured woman?
It just depends on, just because you're full-figured, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't wear certain things. It's just knowing, what type of garment that suits your body type the best.
Okay.
Because all garments, it could be spandex, but a certain type spandex.
Okay.
So it just really depends on what fits your body type the best.
What fits your body type the best?
Yes.
Okay. So is that something that you can actually determine in your store when you're dressing
Yes.
someone?
Yes.
Really? Okay. And what do you recommend for maybe a bustier woman as far as clothing is concerned? Because a lot of times I think are you trying to minimize certain things with women, or are you trying to accentuate certain things?
It just depends on the look that they're going for. Because it could be that they're going to a birthday party and they don't want to look busty.
Okay.
Or they could be going to a fashion show where they, want to look a certain way.
Okay.
They could be going to a business meeting, where they don't want certain things to be hanging out or things like that. So it just kind of depends on where the person is going to best suit their needs at that moment.
Okay. So tell me this: are there ever times that you have clients that will put on an outfit, and you're looking at that client in the outfit, and you're thinking to yourself, I don't think that'll work? Are you ever in a position where you can actually say that and recommend something else, or do you kind of coil back because you don't want to offend someone?
It's one thing about what I do. I am going to be honest, and I am going to be truthful, and I am going to tell the truth. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Because everything that I sell doesn't work for me.
Okay.
So I'm not looking for, for someone to leave out of my store and not look their best. I want that person to look their best because I'm looking for long-term relationships.
I think that's very important in business, and you certainly want repeat business. That's what
Yes.
sustains you. That's what sustains you. You know what? I'm having a great time talking to you, Debbie.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to more dialogue in just a moment when we return with more of Let's Talk About It. Hello and welcome back to this edition of Let's Talk About It with my guest today, Debbie Honore. Debbie, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
So how are things going in the store now? We were talking about the store just before we left out. How are things going, and who do you cater to in the store particularly?
I cater to a very diverse clientele.
A very diverse clientele.
Yes.
Okay. So in the store now, I noticed you wear a lot of accessories, which is great. Do you carry these accessories in the store as well?
Yes, I do.
You do carry these accessories in the store?
Yes.
Okay. So when the women come in, they make the outfit, and you can put it together with this. Do you actually help them with that?
Yes, I do.
You do help them with that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Because everyone is not a fashionista.
Mm-hmm.
So my job is to help create, that fashionista within that person.
Okay.
So sometimes it's with, the shoes, the handbags, the accessories, and the apparel.
Okay. Now, tell me this. When you're putting all these things together, what is your background? What is your background in the fashion industry that makes you the expert?
I have an extensive background in retail. I've worked retail for countless years.
Okay.
And I think the main thing of doing this is having a keen eye. And I've been blessed with a keen eye that I can just, put things together. And the way that I put them together, people just absolutely love the look.
The end result.
Yes.
Which is always important. We touched on the fact that you were from New Orleans and all that. What was one of the greatest losses that you had when you were transitioning from New Orleans because of the storm Katrina?
I would say just a lot of childhood memories, just things that were sentimental.
Okay.
I would say wedding pictures, things as far as my kids are concerned, not being able to retrieve any of that, but everything else has been replaced.
Okay. That is fantastic. I just want to ask you this. Was there ever a time that when you were transitioning from one place to the other that you asked yourself, or you said, God, why me, or why is this happening to us? Did you ever feel like that?
Yeah, from time to time, I would, and I've asked the question, but I had to go back and say, you know what, I can't question God. Everything happens for a reason.
Okay.
And then a lot of times we don't realize, but we speak things into existence. Because I've always said, I wish I can just pick up and I can move from here. But
Really?
there was always a wall that was before me that I couldn't just or wouldn't just, make that move. But once Katrina happened, I knew at that moment it was time for me to just basically start my life over.
Right. And a lot of times when we are faced with different challenges, and like you said, you would oftentimes think about getting out of there. A lot of times God allows things to happen for us to make transitions in our lives
True.
that we wouldn't make had something tragic happened. And so you're almost like your prayers were answered in one way, although it was a lot of tragedy that was involved. I also wanted to ask you, what type of advice would you give to someone who's actually facing a challenge, just like the challenge you had, or any other challenges that we might face in life? What would be some of the things that you would say to that person?
To keep believing, to keep dreaming, just continue to pray and just ask God to order your steps. Don't be a part of naysayers, because people will tell you what you can and what you can't do.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just been a firm believer that what people say and what people, come around you that really don't have your best interest, just stay away from those type of people. I just gave it to God, and I was led here, and this is not by accident.
Right.
At all. So I would say if God has done it for me, He can definitely do it for you. But I will also say that He's not done. This is only the beginning of what God has in store for myself my family, and Shoe Fetage.
Wow, that's very well said. Very well said. And I know those words are certainly going to encourage people to get the opportunity to see this. That's a very encouraging message. It encourages me, because yeah. And anytime that we're in different business, we're always faced with challenges, But when you're able to overcome those challenges, that's what makes you strong. When you fight and you get through the battle. And you've obviously gotten through the battle.
I'm still going through the battle. I mean, every day is not a good day, but we have to continue to press forward because we never know, what God has in store for us. But I do know that He has a lot in store for me. And I'm just going to continue and continue and continue to press forward until I get to my God-given destiny.
All right. And we all have a destiny. Now, there's something that you say that's really catchy. I actually read it in your bio. What is that you say that's very encouraging? It's a part of your bio.
After enduring Katrina and after enduring all of the tragedy that has happened within the last 7-8 years with that experience, I said to myself that I would not sit in a setback, but I will believe in a comeback. And this is my comeback.
Wow. That's fantastic. I hope you guys grabbed a hold of that. I would not believe in a setback, but I will believe in a comeback. Is that right? All right. And on that note, I think we've said everything that we need to say. I hope you guys enjoyed this edition of Let's Talk About It as much as I had with my guest, Debbie Honore. Debbie had survived Katrina, moved to Houston, and started all over. She's now opened a successful business called Shoe Fetage. It's a great story, it's triumphant, and it should encourage you as it encouraged me. For more information on Debbie Honore and Shoe Fetage, you can contact us at Let's Talk About It 12tv@gmail.com. That's Let's Talk About It 12tv@gmail.com. Until next time, we'll see you then. Hello and welcome to this edition of Let's Talk About It. You guys know I like to share triumphant stories. I definitely have a triumphant story here today. I have my wonderful guest, Miss Dianne McPherson, who is the author of Touched But Not Healed. It's basically a testament of her life. Dianne, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I was attracted to having you on the show, number one, because of the book title, Touched But Not Healed. Give me a little bit of what the book is about, and I'm going to have you explain the title a little bit later.
Okay.
So tell us a little bit of what your book is about, Dianne.
Okay. My book is my personal testimony based from adolescent years to about the age of 47. And it just gives you segments of what I went through during those specific times, from childhood mistakes to feeling abandoned, feeling unloved, low self-esteem, just things that I endured. As I stated, touched but not healed, a woman with more than an issue of blood. It relates to the woman in the Bible that had the issue with the hemorrhage. But I say that I had more than, because it wasn't just an issue of blood, it was several issues.
Wow. And those issues are what prompted you to write this book.
Yes.
Now, in getting your information, I've learned that you were actually molested at the age of 14.
That's correct.
How did that affect the direction of your life and the things that happened after that?
It caused me to be very promiscuous in my younger years. I lost my virginity at the age of 12, not really understanding what I was doing, but because I was searching for that love or that to fill that void, then I, kind of dib and dabbled in certain things that I shouldn't have got into. And as a result of that, it just took me to a place where I withdrew. Nobody knew I withdrew, but I did. It was something that I kept on the inside.
So was this at the age of 12 then, or was this at the age of 14?
Actually at the age of 14. And when that incident happened, because I had lost my virginity at 12, I did not believe that it was a forced action. I held myself responsible. Because even though I said no, I didn't stand firm on that. So I kind of blame myself. It was like, did I really want that to happen?
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you're victimized, you tend to internalize that, and you tend to say it was my fault, or maybe if I didn't do this, or maybe if I had done that, it would have made a difference. But the fact of the matter is, if it's an adult person that is choosing to have inappropriate behavior with a child and manipulate the child's mind, it is definitely not the child's fault. You all have to know that.
Exactly. And most children today experience that same type of thing. And it is true. It's not that child's fault. It's actually the person who is committing the act.
Right.
But I didn't know that then.
Right.
So I kept it to myself.
Okay. So tell me, okay, you kept it to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So then there was no type of legal action, I guess, that was taken against
No.
the perpetrator?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So after that took place in your life, what were the other things that made your life spiral downward?
Wow. It began with using drugs.
Using drugs.
Using
okay.
drugs. I wanted to have something to just give me that fulfillment.
Yeah.
That I was missing, that I thought I was missing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it started with just the social, smoking weed and, doing the casual drinking and
Right.
things like that. But then that wasn't enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I took it to another level. And I began using cocaine, crack cocaine, because
Okay.
I laced it with the weed,
Right.
So it was the term primos.
Okay.
And because I was still functioning, I was
Mm-hmm.
going to school, going to work, doing those things that you normally do to
Right.
survive. I didn't think I had a problem.
Okay. So you basically what I often hear, a functioning addict.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Wow. So in doing the drugs and all the things that happened in your life, how did you come to a place where you felt it was time to turn your life around? How old were you when you began to think, okay, I got to turn this thing around?
Wow. I've always had that foundation of the whole spiritual essence in my life from my great-grandparents, on down to my mother. And I knew about God and I knew who he was, but I had not quite experienced him for myself. I was going to church, being a part of church,
Okay.
but I did not have a relationship with him. And it wasn't until I began to spiral out of control,
Okay.
hitting my head against the wall, and I said, enough is enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I began to seek God,
Okay.
and I began to pray more, and just
Right.
call out to him and ask him, why am I in this situation?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I guess you discovered at some point that a lot of the root belonged to the thing that happened at an early age.
Yes,
And I think the sex at 12 kind of opened the door.
it did.
It was the gateway for other things to take place in your life.
It did.
What was rock bottom for you?
Rock bottom for me was when I found myself actually going through the process. I lost my first daughter. She was 4 months old. And at that time I was using, but I did not use while I was pregnant with her.
Okay.
But because of the mindset that I was in, I thought that her death was a result of my actions on how I lived my life. And so it was at that point when, I just couldn't believe that this God, this awesome God,
Right.
would take my baby away from me. And so that's when, I started realizing, maybe there's some truth to what Mama and Grandmama's been telling me all along.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, if you don't mind my asking, what was it that happened to your 4-month-old?
She had a very rare heart disease. At the time, a healthy, vibrant baby, doing well. And just one day, she just took ill.
Mhm.
And I remember not coming home with her from the hospital. But then even at that point, God was showing me in the midst of my mess that this was a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was basically preparing me for it. But I just could not really see it.
Okay.
I could feel it, but I couldn't see it.
You could feel it, but you couldn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Now, there's other things that have taken place in your life. I know you were married,
Mm-hmm.
and then you transitioned. You
Right.
divorced.
Right.
What was that like for you?
The transition from divorce to where I am today, it was very difficult. I invested my 7 years into this marriage because I believed in the sacred vow of marriage, the covenant of marriage. That's what I saw before me with my grandparents. And because I chose the individual,
Okay.
he was not God sent,
Okay.
then God showed me that this was not what I designed for you.
Wow.
But it was a learning process.
Okay.
It was good, and then it got bad.
Okay.
But I can truly say that even now, that we still are good friends.
Okay. Okay. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And also, you have another child now.
Yes, I do.
Right. Okay. Okay. So you've been blessed to have another child.
Yes. As God begins to remove things from your life, He does restore. And I say my miracle child is Kendall.
Okay. That's fantastic. You know, I'm looking forward to hearing more about your story because we're having I think this interview is going to bless a lot of people, Dianne.
I hope so.
And that's the importance of this show, to be able to bless people along the journey, to make a difference in the lives of the people that see this show. And your testimony is definitely one of those that's going to bless the people.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and we're going to be back in just a moment with more of Let's Talk About It as we hear more of Dianne's story and learn a little bit more about what her book is, Touched But Not Healed. We'll see you back in just a moment. Welcome back to Let's Talk About It with my awesome guest, Miss Dianne McPherson, who's written an awesome book called Touched But Not Healed. Dianne, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about this title now, Touched But Not Healed, because so often when I think touched, I'm thinking like the Lord touched and healed. So explain the title, Touched But Not Healed, for me.
Well, God gave me the title because my story relates to the woman with an issue of blood. And as you can remember in the story, it talks about what she did to get to Him. And she went through the crowd. She didn't care about her issue at that time. She just forced her way through just to get that touch. And once she made it, she didn't actually touch Him, but she touched the hem of His garment. And for me, I had experienced being touched by God, but because I allowed myself to go back to the places where He had brought me from, then I say that I was not healed. Because even though He filled me with His Spirit, I still allowed self to get in the way. But it was through this process of writing the book and actually completing it and getting to the place where I am today, when I could say that I was touched but not healed, but now I'm made whole.
Wow. I was touched but not healed, but now I am made whole. What a journey. You know, Dianne, I want to ask you advice for a young girl like yourself at the age of 12 when you begin having sex. I guess it'd be okay to say.
Right, exactly.
What type of advice would you give to young girls that are coming up today to keep them from going down the path that you may have gone down in your life?
The key thing is to listen. Listen to the advice of the elders. It's a key point. And stay focused on your goals and your dreams and your aspirations. And those things that try to come to take you off course, recognize what they are and continue to move forward. But the most thing that is very essential to everyone's life is to pray. And even if you don't have that spiritual guidance or relationship, find something that gives you that focus and that drive to move forward.
I think that's great advice. Now, when you say to pray, some people, and especially young, they don't know how to pray. Can you give us just an example of how to pray?
Exactly. It's simple. Just as I'm sitting here talking to you today, all you have to say is, God, here I am. You know, you can just speak to Him in your own way. It doesn't have to be any type of format, anything rehearsed. Just open your mouth and begin to speak. Once you open your mouth, then He'll do the rest.
Okay. Open your mouth and He'll do the rest. I think that's fantastic. I want to go back to something that I saw in your book when you talked about your dark place. What was your dark place?
My dark place was actually all of the losses that I've had in my life. Key people that I really looked up to. And because it was their time to transition on, they were removed out of my life. But I found myself actually at one point needing those individuals. They were my support, my strength. They were the ones that encouraged me to keep moving. So now that they're not physically here,
Right.
I have to rely on the things that they told me in the past. So I hear those voices and I feel those prayers from
Okay.
those individuals.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. So often, I know I reflect back to my grandmother, and oftentimes there were things that my grandmother said to me that still resonate in my spirit today. That actually, and also my father, that stuck with me in the midst of their passing.
Right.
Even to this day, that helps sustain me at various times in my life. And one of the things that my father used to say to me oftentimes is, when something bad happens to you, take your lemons and turn it into lemonade.
That's right.
So you take a bad situation and you find the good in it to make it work for you. And I think that's so important. And obviously you've done the same thing in this book, Touched But Not Healed, which I think is a fantastic read. Tell me what's next for Dianne McPherson.
What's next for me is to continue writing because just as I've completed this project, God is already moving to have me to go into something different. I'm working with some young girls in different areas of Houston, actually just mentoring them and encouraging them to know that it doesn't matter about what you look like or who you are, that you are somebody and you can fulfill your dreams. So just to be an encourager and just to let them know that you can do it.
Right. And it's so important for especially young girls to get that type of information in a world of the internet.
Exactly.
And social media. You see so much, and so often they compare themselves to what they see in social media. And it's just not reality for everybody.
No, it's not. I was a teenager who was, chubby and didn't feel like I fit in, and now I'm experiencing that same thing with my daughter. And so I just try to encourage her, to let her light shine, because it's not about the outer appearance, but it's about your inner beauty. And people are attracted to what's on the inside.
And that is so true. That is so true. And they're also attracted to confidence too.
Exactly.
And when you're able to walk in confidence, no matter who you are, or what adversity you've gone through in life, people are attracted to that.
Exactly.
So I think that's a beautiful thing. Now, being in a position to help young girls, if you could give us 5 key points that actually will make a difference in the life of a girl who has self-esteem issues or self-esteem problems, what would you say to that girl?
I would tell her to first just look in the mirror and begin to look deep into who you are. Look at your eyes. Look at your facial structure. And just know that you are somebody, that God created you to be exactly who you are. Know who you are. And then the other things is just be confident, as we've talked about, that level of confidence, and just being who you are. Stay focused on your dreams. Remember that there are people out there that will help you. Don't be ashamed to ask for help. And don't ever think that a question is not good enough for an answer.
I like that. Never think that a question is not good enough for an answer. Fantastic. I always like to leave you guys with a good tip and something that you can hold on to after you leave the show. I think that's a great nugget for the audience to certainly hold on to. Dianne, thank you so much for being a part of Let's Talk About It today, for sharing your life's journey, for sharing your awesome book, Touched But Not Healed. It's an awesome read, and I wish you tons of success with your project.
Thank you for having me, Ferrell.
Absolutely. And for more information about Miss Dianne McPherson, you can reach us at Let's Talk About It 12tv@gmail.com. That's Let's Talk About It 12tv@gmail.com. I hope you guys have been motivated and inspired by this story. And until next time, we'll see you then.